Today for our call, we have another stacked agenda. As always, we're going to kick things off with a lightning talk, and then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion around preventing or blocking invalid polygons. And then we'll jump into some product updates. We have a lot to share on the product updates front, so I am going to try, and please, everyone else on the call, keep me honest with sticking to the times, just because we have a lot to share. And then, as always, we'll stay on for a bit afterwards, if you have any questions. So, our lightning talk speaker today is Langen. They're going to be sharing their ODK process, how they're using different mapping tools to conserve and manage natural resources. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll hand it over. Let's see, there we go.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Let me put on presentation mode. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, that's the introductions. My name's Langen Mallya, others Mushi or Kaflet, that's my names. And I have a small organization called Jira Bidhaa. Jira is a meaningful location or point in Swahili. So it's Jira Bidhaa Enterprises. Also, I'm working with WWF as a contractor. And I have nearly 20 years experience in GIS in conservation. I used to work for the national parks. One time I used to work for the huntings. Then I go back to working with total conservation with WWF and the other after job were things which is Jira Bidhaa is involved in really. And I'm glad to be here. I know, yeah, if you don't remember me, nearly 10 years back, we met at Google. So I don't know if you remember me. So
it's good to see you again. I can't say that I remember. My brain is not so good anymore. I'm now a very old man.
Me too. So the presentation will take you through the contents will be the community conservation, how the organization here in Tanzania, mostly this international organization, but also local registers organization works in around planning and later on data. And next we'll go why we select ODK as WWF Tanzania. And the other thing will be the flow diagram. After we select, we say we go for this one, what we did. That was the process and how we implement the PPMOS project planning project management systems. Then we'll go to ODK Central and collect how we do it, and we modify a little bit in that old days so that the community, really the aim here is the community and how the community is using it, and how we are using the ODK Central API in our work, which really helps a lot in not only WWF, but the partners, the local government authority, in utilizing the data we are collecting. The last will be Q&A. On the left, that's the picture of me at the rooftop of Africa, the Kilimanjaro. Back last year, we are there. So that's my one of the favorite picture. So to start with mostly looking on how conservation organization, also WWF, we have some conservation program which looking on habitats, the forest, the rangeland, and also the fresh water, the species specific, both marine and terrestrial. Mostly they select key big wildlife like elephant, dugong, or whale shark, so that when you protect the bigger one, the small one will survive within it. That's how we are moving. And at the end of the day, WWF, for example, and other organizations, mostly working with community, because the central government protected area can say well manageable, but around the corridors and dispersal areas where the community is, there's a lot of human wildlife conflict, but also bush meat activity. So that's where the NGO are working. And developing the programs, looking on also climate change and carbon sequestration. But going down this, they develop at the program, they develop different projects, which mostly you have to develop with community-based organizations. This is a local level, a local people mostly, that's where the ODK comes. They speak Swahili, which is there. Also the CSO, the civil society organization, is around there, mostly working. And from this community, that's where most of the data involved within the projects. It depends, but also on the intervention sites, they're helping a lot in data collection, because these guys, they're on all days, but some area they're still using books to collect human-wildlife conflicts, to collect how they are doing the farm activity, field-based farm schools, how they're keeping records of local groups. That's how mostly we're working on these intervention sites. But looking on WWF and other organizations, mostly there is nearly 4 areas they are working around to conserve, really doing those things, which is monitoring real, where we are using a lot of tools, different tools. It depends on the work, and to protect, mostly if they designated forest, freshwater, or wildlife protected area, that's where manage, that's where the big thing is, because this community, they should manage their own areas. And lastly, restore, planting trees, or there is passive and active, passive and active. Passive is just protecting, active is just planting and other things, from mangrove, seagrass up to the terrestrial area. And on top of that, in all this scenario, we're working community conservation. The most of these NGOs, they are using Miradi, which is based on PPMS, to design a situation model, how things works, how things are, and how you convert it to a theory of change. And mostly we are using the Miradi software. You can see there, I put a link for most people to go there. That Miradi, we design everything. And within this, the yellow, there are some interventions, some strategy, and some things. That's where we figure out how best we put the indicators. And these indicators will help and see how best we collect data, and how best we can get data at different levels from the ground, but also from the government offices. I want to show this one, the community conservation, how we do monitoring. Some communities have bigger and employ some people with degree holds, so they are using even drones. But some they are using, they know how to use remote sensing, but we support rangers. So doing some patrols in collecting data. There's different software, but sometimes they're using what we have. The ground sensors, which in some area in fresh water, we have mostly measuring the water levels, the server for data collection, and the web client, which mostly is the ODK we are using. That's where we are. So on the other pictures, just for example, one of the things we are doing, we're greening the capital of Tanzania, Dodoma. So mostly we are observing our points with mobile app, the ODK, and at the end of the day, we are trying to put on the Earth engine, and easily we can see. Below there, you can see those are environmental clubs. Mostly, we are working with the students to river health assessment using small mammals or small invertebrates to establish the quality of the water. And originally, they're using the paper. Right now, we are converting to digital, so that most of these students, they have smartphones. I'm going to why the ODK. So within WWF, one of the big things also we are doing is restoration. We call forest landscape restoration, doing everything within the ecosystem. So doing the fresh water, the forest, the wildlife, the total conserved forest, but also the community, the farmland, everything. Because if you forget one aside, people will go to those arable land, leaving the land which they used to cultivate because it grows nothing right now. So why in WWF Tanzania, we select the ODK, and most of my work I select the ODK. Most of the time right now, we can look around Tanzania and globally, availability of infrastructure as a service. That's the big thing, because you can host your data collection, Docker, whatever. For example, for Tanzanian case, this is specific for Tanzania, Personal Data Protection Act is very big right now. So looking on data controllers, data processing subjects. So even if you as WWF and other international organizations want to host the data outside, still you have to pay these licenses so that they can come and see how you protect the data, the agreements and everything. That's where it's important to have this hosting the data. The trust, like Tanzania is a socialism, not capitalist kind of socialism government. So they see things within Tanzania as more trusty than the others. Also resources. We are working with donors, and most of the donors feel they consider monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Some they don't. So most of the time we try to see how best we have the resource. So this one solves the problem of resources, huge resources and data collection really go to those minimal projects. So we can support even the project without a budget on data. Also going forward, lastly, I will be sharing the spatial decision system and user base and support from the forum. The ODK is so big so that you can rely on this software. So on WWF, for example, why we select the ODK, there was a discussion, and this is the flow diagram we have within Withdraw, but looking on what project management system is saying that I showed earlier, we will go to Miradi. So most of the time we do planning, implement, analyze, share, and access. And you can look, this is where the server is, and the ODK Central will do our data collection. So this is the flow we draw while we are deciding, because in WWF and other organizations, most of the time we have to go through quality assurance, how this software came and what you can do and what is the sustainability. So PPMS is the one big thing, and we draw what we have so that we can display, because we should document everything we are doing for the accessors from the government if they want, because we are collecting data in the community. The government is on top of everything. So it's important we do everything. So that's how we do our things. Right now, we are moving to proprietary on the mapping side, the GeoServer. That's what we are moving as WWF. So after deciding what we, right now, currently on this one, what we are doing, that's very, what we did in ODK after selecting the ODK. For example, for me right now, WWF, but other two organizations I'm supporting on this on ODK Central. So we have 3 organizations, I can say, more than plus 50 projects doing this data collection difference. Users plus 2,000 they are using, and nearly developing in Excel, the form nearly 200. So I want to, the one I can see, you can see the ODK, the one, the Miombo, is that we take the collect, we modify, because most, we have geographical data, we do land use plan. So what we did, we modify a little bit, we put the map. So you can see the polygon, the map, that's a community conserved area. And within this one, so the community, they can have a map of where they are working, and at least seeing, and they plot the coordinates simply using the, we are using the leaflet JS, JavaScript, to do this. And within this one, you click, the second will open, which really is doing the Miombo, opens the data collections. Back in 2022, we did this. Right now, we want to do the major upgrade, because there is a lot of changes, so that the community, rather than collecting the data, we want to find a way of giving them feedback. That's very important for us. So we take the collect, we modify a little bit. So we have the map, the protected area, whatever. So we know, even the staff going to the field, they know where they're sending the plot coordinate on the map, and at the same time, they can collect the data. The last image shows the Jira Bazaar I'm working right now, because most of the organizations, they are supporting community livelihood, nature-based solution, bankable. So how they sell the middleman, they take them down a lot. So I want to use the ODK and collecting the data about the location where the product are, so people, they can try to buy direct from the producers rather than the middlemen. That I'm trying to do as JB there, rather than the NGOs not doing that way. That's the big thing. So right now, since for us as NGOs, most of the time I see what I'll do, I'll share what I have. So in QGIS, because I'm doing GIS, I developed this for ODK. 4 people know, but 4 is one of the village right now I'm in. where I come from, it's called default, so I call for ODK, is a QGIS plugin. Right now, the old version, we have nearly 4,114 downloads. People, they are using this tool to pull data using the ODK Central API. And you can see mostly are from USA, but also a lot from South America going down to Africa and Asia. So these are the user base. You can see mostly how they're using the ODK. And right now, yesterday night, I did release the version 2, which will be, I will show later on how best it will be. Especially for me, what I'm doing with this one until the release is just monitoring the data collection rather than downloading everything. So it helps a lot integrating with different polygons within QGIS and pulling the data and the plot and see how the progress in data collection goes. So a little bit, I'll show what I did. So right now I modified, so it's docked on the QGIS. On the right is the one. So when you can undock it, so it goes like that one. So mostly it has 4 major things: the projects, forms, data, a simple analysis which can try to show you how you are doing things and how things are going, and the help which people can read a little bit. So the initial thing is the data. Nearly right now what I did is you can store, because if your computer is single use, you can store the login credential in, and when you log in, you can open the list of projects, and you can have the metadata of the project using the API. So after loading the form straight, after loading the project, you go the list of forms you can select. Right now, you can see the details, the metadata of the form. You can see the fields, the repeats, whatever you have in your form, systematically you can see. But what I added below, the entity and users still on working on it, but what I added below it was filter. You filter by rows, number of rows, or you filter by date. So when you select, you can select also number of pages. How many pages you want to filter on this? So you can select the number of pages, and then you can go down. If you select by date, you can filter by your date, and then you can load your data. When you load your data, you can have the main forms, the submissions, and the repeat as a subform mostly. And one big thing which I did modify is that you can go straight to attachments, which shows the audit if you have, and the images. So for me, in some areas, in some people in presentation, we want to work with Google Earth Engine. So in attachments, I added the image viewer. So you can go to image viewer, you can select your point data, and then you can modify the metadata of the image and save the EXIF file. So when you take it to, for example, to Google Earth, automatically it will detect and plot your point, the picture where it's coming from the map. So that will help a lot on me, and I see some people can help. So from this one, you can use to extract the pictures with coordinates so that you can further use in other areas. So that metadata, also the description you can put on it. That's what the major thing is. Lastly, you can load the audit forms. And when you load the audit forms, when you load the audit forms, automatically go to analysis. So the analysis, what I'm using is the pandas, and really looking on the pivot table. That's what I'm looking. And for this data, most of them, right now it's working with submission, not the repeat, but later on you'll work with the repeats. The aim is to make sure that you can do a simple pivot of the data you select, where people, for me, they're collecting data on that day and looking on the data quality on the pivot, how many village, because you're working with community, the sub-village, or whatever they are working, human-wildlife conflict. And later on, you can also pivot the audit there. You can pivot the audit data and see how the movement is, and load it in as a table, as a spatial data, so that you can do the heat map and see how best your data collection things go. So it helps a lot on that way. But from this one data, you can produce the chart and looking on the simple chart. And lastly, you can look on the word count. So looking on the single field, for example, you're answering about it, the type of tree you are planting. People are planting trees. So you can try to look on that field column and see what type of trees are highlighted in where the cloud that is really planted in this area, because we are collecting on this data also. And also we can, that's the help, what I'm trying to do, looking on what is installed, but the libraries, important libraries we are using for image, putting the coordinates is Pilo and Pixels, but also eddy count, the pandas, and plotting the graph is Metaploids. So except one, I think most of them, they're coming with QGIS, but not the latest in some ways, but the word count you have to install so that you can do that one. And really, for me, I can say from this one, the API and the QGIS, it helps a lot. And right now, as a trainer, I'm trying to put more people, especially those project officers in WWF and other organizations, make sure they utilize it to help them do a quick analysis when people they're collecting data rather than doing the downloads, because most of the time they come back to me. So this will help a lot, and I'll show later on the Excel. And from this one, what we are doing, especially, there is a human-wildlife conflict. We are doing the farming, agriculture, the range length, looking on monitoring plot. Also, we are looking data on marine, planting the mangrove. So there is a lot we are doing with this one. So people right now, they're trying to use, and I do hope they will use it. Lastly, the two last slides. So also we are right now currently, apart from this mapping direct, I've tried to teach people to use the central API in Excel. The good thing, most of our forms we are designing, they have repeat questions. So it's very, internet is down. So the repeat questions is very important for us. So using Excel and the relationship, it helps a lot. Also, so for Excel, you are using, there is Excel and Power BI, which is Microsoft. Automatically, we are using the relationship a lot. And this, I try to show the second slide. We put so that the repeats and this one match. Most of the people, this is the easiest way. They don't understand if you have two separate forms, how to match it. So this is the help. When on the right is the Power BI dashboard for invasive species we are developing. So this is live every 2 days. It updates itself from our server, the ODK Central, and try to show where this is the range length, and we are trying to remove the invasive on the pasture land of the Maasai in northern Tanzania near the border with Kenya. So this is how we are using a lot on Central API, and it helps a lot this area because most of the people, they don't know ODK. With the few guys, we are designing the form we put online. They just know to download the mobile phone, on the mobile phone, collect the data, and open the Excel and pull the data. So right now, they're going to QGIS for that. So that's best how we are using the Central API, the OData, and it helps a lot in our way. So this is the end of it, and thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Does anyone have any questions? We could switch back to seeing everybody's faces here. Oh, do that. Let's see.
Let me stop sharing, yeah?
Yeah, and then we can see everybody. You're getting lots of love and emojis. I don't know if you can see it, but thank you so much. Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you for sharing, Langen. I had a question about sort of the Power BI and Excel integrations. Are you having any sort of performance issues with that? Like how much data are you loading in Power BI and Excel, and is it working well for you? I'm asking this question because I've also tried to do, just last night, tried to do some joins on tables using Power Query, and it was surprisingly slow. Not from the ODK side, just like joining CSVs and Power Query. So I'm curious what your performance has been like using joining those tables.
The performance, it depends on the number of data reel. And for example, for me, when I'm out of the office, really the performance is not so good. But most of this dashboard we are creating, we are within the office. So when we are saying the server is too fast, we are using the cable. So most of the time it's too fast, and automatically we put it because we are using the Azure right now. So after developing on a computer, my PC, then we upload it to the Azure so that automatically it updates themselves is there. So most of the time I say it too fast is fast, and we try to make sure it updates at midnight so that when people come in the morning, they try some, they out of the office guys, they are complaining sometimes it's too slow to load some things, but it depends also on the internet where they are.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other quick questions? Oh, yeah.
So one thing also I want to add a little bit. One of the experience of working with WWF is that ODK, after we selecting it, I can say sustainability is so good. Others, they are moving around with different and the price changes, whatever. So I can say since we select the ODK, our ride was smooth compared to other country offices, because Kenya, they have their own 1, 2, 3, whatever. So it's kind of smooth because the 1, 2, 3 is difficult to share with partner, but for us, we can share with partner the QR code, everything. So the ride was smooth, and I can say we appreciate for the developers and the Insiders team. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your work. We'll make sure that some people had to leave and they really want to see your lightning talk, Langen, so we'll make sure that we share that out so everyone gets to see it. I'm going to share my screen to go into a discussion. Maybe as I do that, let's give one more round of applause. All the love for Langen. Let's see, I'll share my screen here so everyone can see that, hopefully. All right. Yeah. All right. So now we want to continue the conversation around mapping, specifically around preventing or blocking invalid polygons, self-intersecting polygons. This is related to overlapping polygons, and I know there's a lot of folks on the call that are quite keen to hear about that as well. So don't worry, we have some thoughts that I'll share on that. But first, I'm going to kind of go through self-intersecting polygons, kind of share some of the problems, some of the common scenarios we've heard, and then our proposal. So the problem, I shared this a little bit on the forum. What we've seen is that invalid polygons are created due to GPS drift or user error, and it's usually crossing over already mapped areas. This is a challenge because folks don't get kind of that real-time validation or clear guidance on fixing some of those issues, and errors are typically discovered after submission that requires a lot of rework, that's really expensive and time-consuming. We've heard this quite a bit over the last year, and so we're quite excited to think through some approaches on how to address it. So what we've heard from folks so far is from like a project manager perspective, they want submissions that only have valid geometry. They want errors to be fixed immediately in the moment, in context, and they want it to be user friendly, as all things with ODK, to require little training. So from the data collector's side of things, making sure that it's a guided flow, it's clear, easy to use, and there's feedback when something goes wrong. And then there's an easy way or kind of some sort of reference in order to fix those errors, because that might not always be as clear today. And so what we've heard from you all, thank you from everyone that shared their scenarios on our forum post. What we heard was that data collectors are using a mix of different recording modes or methods, so placement, manual, automatic, and this really depends based on the environment or maybe the instructions. So it's quite important that the data collector has that ability to pick what works best or what they've been instructed to do for that particular area. And users understand the different modes, but might not be aware of all of the available actions that they can take, like long press to move, undo last point. Some of those things might not be known or as intuitive. And then another thing we learned was that users don't put their phones in their pocket for long periods of time during automatic mode. That was something that we were quite curious about. And from what we heard from you all on the forum and from user research is that actually doesn't happen as often. It might just be temporary to kind of get around a fence or move around the terrain, just putting it in your pocket temporarily. So we've identified 4 different scenarios that we heard from you all, and I'll just go through those quickly. The first one is a slight crossover at the corner. So this might happen if the data collector pauses for whatever reason and an extra point is captured. It could also occur when they're walking around obstacles, like a fence or something like that. And then in manual mode, that may result, it may be a result of an accidental long press, double presses. So that can also happen. You can see that first screenshot there. And then if you kind of zoom in, you can see the crossover. So it might not be obvious to the data collector. Scenario 2 could be crossover due to a GPS spike. So that can occur when there's GPS signal drifts, especially if the user is walking slowly. One thing we've been discussing as a team, as an idea, this might be reduced by setting an accuracy threshold. So that's something that we've been kind of thinking about. The third scenario is crossover in a narrow or connecting areas. So when you're mapping out a very small section, as you can kind of see at that top image there, or a section that might lead to segments connecting. And so the user can move to a better position or manually place a non-overlapping point, but we know this is quite tricky. And then the fourth scenario is crossover when the polygon closes. So that's once the overlap happens once it's complete. This can be detected at save time once it is finished. Right now, the best way to fix it is to move the first point, but obviously one of the downsides is the accuracy would be 0. So that project or a project manager would have to be okay with that. So these are the common scenarios that we've heard over the last months. And our proposal that we're thinking through is opt-in continuous constraint evaluation for points, traces, shapes, and questions in collect. And this function would be used to detect the line intersection. So it would be blocking any additional points and making it clear to the user that they need to take an action and fix the crossover. I see there's questions in the chat. I'll get to those after, maybe someone on the team. I'll give you some quick examples and then I'll definitely pause for more questions. So just a few examples. So if self-intersections aren't allowed, creating a self-intersection would cause the constraint violation and then they would be blocked. So an example could be if your constraint requires 4 points, adding the 5th one would cause the constraint value of violation and then they would be blocked. So here's what it would look like in the XLS form. And the parameters column, you can see on constraint eval on change. You can see the constraint messages that we've added there. The constraint message in this case is quite important to make sure that it's not introducing any technical jargon. That's what we've heard quite a bit in the feedback, and making sure that we don't talk about self-intersecting polygons. Maybe we can say lines can't cross, or try to break it down in a way that's really easy to understand and take action on. And so what this looks like from a user perspective is they'll be kind of mapping along this user experience. That first screen shouldn't look too different. And then if they're kind of mapping along their polygon, and then they have a crossover, they would get this little snack bar with the constraint message that you define. So in this case, lines can't cross. And then there would be an action they can take to learn how to modify, and I'll show that in a second. But at this point, they wouldn't be able to continue adding points. So they would get the visual feedback of the polygon. It's red, something went wrong, they crossed over, and they need to take an action. So if they tap the how to modify, depending on what mode they're in, they'll see all of the actions they can take on the map kind of listed out, so it's really clear what each button can do. So you can long press to move a point. You could move physically to correct the error. We heard that this isn't as intuitive and folks might not know about it. You could delete the last point that you added, or delete the entire shape and start over. And so all of this just is to act as guidance. They might not need this that often. So if they know how to fix the error, they probably won't tap that to see this dialogue, but it's always there in case they do need it, depending on what mode they're in. And then once they fix the error, so let's say they undid the last point, it would go back to blue and like a good state. You get the snack bar feedback saying that the error was fixed, and then they could continue on mapping their polygon and then save a valid polygon. So this is to try to meet multiple goals, give the user feedback immediately in context, and making sure that they can correct it rather than correcting it afterwards. That's another idea we explored, was what if you could just review all of the mistakes after and then fix them there. But a lot of the feedback we got was that fixing it in the moment is the best, because you can make sure that you're accurately describing the area or plotting it out correctly. So this is most suitable for, and this is opt-in, just reminder, but it's best suitable for situations where the users can fix the issue straight away. So by deleting a point or moving to a new location. So not as suitable, as I was just saying, if you wanted to add more points. So that's something to consider here if you're thinking about using this. Other possibilities, if your form needs both the continuously evaluated constraints, so no self-intersections, and end of capture constraint, like at least 4 points, this can be handled separately, we're thinking for right now, by adding a note that can be displayed after the geometry is captured. I'll put all of these links in the chat afterwards. This is the link to the docs of how you can do this now. And just quickly on web forms, we're imagining that this will follow a very similar experience. We want them to be cohesive and consistent. And so we're actually thinking through what that might look like already on the web forms side as we're finishing up some of the geo question types, but the goal is to make them consistent. And then if you're editing data using web forms, we will still provide the tools to be able to correct those invalid polygons, because some of your forms might not want to opt into this, and in some cases we've heard that invalid polygons are what they want. So we'll still provide the tools if you do want to make any edits later after submission. And then lastly, overlapping polygons. So this is something that is in progress right now. We're kind of scoping out this work. This is when users need to capture new points, traces, or shapes, and it's helpful to see the other previously mapped areas. So that might be fields or households. And the goal is to make sure that you're not revisiting or overlapping those already mapped out areas. So we're going to share more details on the form, but just to let you know, this is still on our radar. We're working towards a solution, and we'll share more soon. Okay, I will pause there. Go to the questions. Maybe Callum or Yao can help me out. How are we doing on the questions?
I'm answering Wolf's question, so I'll do that.
Okay.
And also, Ali, thank you. For me, it was very clear about the things that are coming, so very exciting. I've had a sneak peek. But maybe Callum can address Andrew's question about will all base maps be updated to allow? Oh no, maybe not. So will somebody address the question of will all base maps be allowed to updated to allow moving points because they don't all at this current time, which I didn't.
Yeah, I thought they all did. And which one doesn't at the moment, Andrew? Is he not here?
I don't know. Just typing.
I wonder if he asked a question and then disappeared.
We can look into that.
I'll
So
take
we can
look at that. I assumed that every single one did at the moment, but maybe one of them doesn't, or it could be there's a bug. I'm assuming he means like Mapbox, OpenStreetMaps, or Google Maps. One of them.
Yes, that's also what I'm assuming.
But yeah, we would want them to all do movement.
Okay, so Andrew, if you're listening, or you can, yeah. All right, he will check and let us know.
Oh,
Fantastic.
terrible. Yeah.
Wolf had a question that I already answered, but for the recording, that how will we treat directly bordering neighbor polygons, like polygons that share a border? That's a pretty nasty problem. I think I would delay that until, like, since it's related to overlapping polygons, I think that's one of the things we'll have to consider when we sort of design a solution for overlapping polygons. So stay tuned for that. Let's see. All right, and there's a question here from Daniel, a comment that it's important that errors in the polygons are visually identifiable by the user. And I think both the snack bar and the redness should make that possible. So I see some nodding on the Kabush team,
Yeah.
so I think we're good to go there. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
If you have any feedback on making that, we really debated if you should even visualize allowing the point to intersect and if they should see that or not, or if it should just show the snack bar. And we thought like seeing it go red, seeing the crossover would be helpful kind of visual feedback with the snack bar. So if you have any other ways we could improve that or make that more obvious, I think we can layer on some animations. Cal, I'm not promising anything, I know, but like we could iterate potentially down the road. So if you do have any ideas, please add it to the thread. I'll pop that in the chat afterwards.
All right, Ali, you're out of time.
I'm out of time. Thank you. Yes. All right, so on the product updates front, I made this note so I didn't forget. Just last night, we released another beta. We'll put the link in the chat. But that's quite exciting. I know some of you on the call will be keen to see that. As I was just talking through the blocking self-intersecting polygons, that's something we're actively working on now. We're also working on creating entities from a repeat coming soon. We'll share more. And then we've also been working on filtering out entity properties in the bottom sheet. So here's just a little bit of a before and after. So we've removed the version, trunk version, branch ID. We got feedback quite a bit that information might not be so useful for the data collector. So we cleaned that up. We've also increased the font size so that it's consistent and not so small and you have to squint. So hopefully that reads better as well, but let us know how that works. And then we're still working on displaying media in the summary. We're putting in a lot of foundations to make sure that works in the hierarchy, the summary view, as well as the form filling experience. So when you're capturing a video, seeing the preview or seeing the image. So we want to make sure that like works seamlessly across. So we're just putting in all the foundations there. And then another thing just to note is we shared this last week. In the new year, probably around March, we're going to be requiring Android 8 or higher. So devices running on older versions won't be able to update beyond 2025.4 unless their operating system is upgraded. And there are a lot of different reasons for this. We want to make sure that we can take advantage of some valuable system improvements. But if you have any questions, add them to that post there. And I'll hand it over to Jennifer.
Hey
Is she on the
everyone.
call? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. It took
Hello.
me a while to find the mute button. All right, so I'm your person for things about web forms. Let's dive in. First big win was Markdown is now live in Central. You can use standard Markdowns for labels, hints, select options, things like headings, bolds, italic, links, and even font colors. All are rendering cleanly in web form. So now you can use these fun things to make text nicer and make it clearer and more effective for data collectors. Next, please. Second big win, select one from map is here. How exciting. Data collectors now see an interactive map and tap to choose a single point. It also loads options from external files like CSV and GeoJSON. We're still polishing the status message. For example, you will see something more specific like shape saved instead of a generic feedback. But those are like little polishing things that we're doing. Try it out and let us know any feedback in the forum. All right, next. Now we're currently building entities. You will be able to create and update entities directly in web forms. This is a big deal because entities from repeats is something that Keto can do, and it will work seamlessly in web forms. So we are pushing hard to get this into your hands soon. Next. Meanwhile, we have been working in GeoPoint with maps. Right now, it's in testing stage, so it's about to get finalized. It supports maps appearance, which saves the data collector's current location and placement map. So we long press to drop a point and drag to adjust the point location. Both are smooth, intuitive, and works just like you would expect in any browser. Keep an eye on the forums for updates once this thing is released. Next. And next up, we are designing GeoShape and GeoTrace with modern intuitive UI. Same map engine, but now with easy-to-use tools for creating, editing shapes and traces. So the data collectors will be able to create, adjust, and close shape with ease. We'll make sure to include these scenarios that Ali just explained before about invalid polygons and all that. So no more clunky in Keto experience. And that's it. So basically, Markdown released, select one from map released, entity in progress, GeoPoint nearly done, GeoShape and GeoTrace next. So we're just making web form better and building around your needs, right? Now handing over to Centra.
Hey, that's me. So lo and behold, we have some more map stuff for Central. To Mathieu's point, we have lots of geo improvements. Yeah, so we talked about this for the first time at the summit, and it's out as of yesterday or Monday, very recently. So if you go into Central and you look at your submissions table, you will now see a toggle where you can view your points and plots on a map. So long awaited, very exciting. It's out. Along with that, we are also we've also added a bulk delete feature for entities. So you can now go in, there's a new column on the left side of the table where you can select all on the screen, just a few, however many you want. And yeah, we're starting to work around bulk actions and filtering and more advanced capabilities in the entities tables. We are currently working on entities on a map. Hasn't been released yet, but this is like the V2 and should mirror the submissions on a map functionality, basically one-to-one, but entities, separate beast. We will be doing that in the upcoming release. And coming up, not in the next release, but the one after, we're keeping on making progress on entity access. We've been talking about it as user management or entity segmenting, but this is phase 2 of being able to define properties on your app users to give them specific entity access. So lots of entity stuff happening now and in the future. And also coming up will be entities from a repeat. That'll come out the same time Collect releases it. So more to come on that later. And that's it. Any questions?
And has a question, were there any issues on central update to this version so far? We don't think so. Hobson, we try not to release software with issues, so that's a little rude. I'm just kidding. Yeah, there are no issues that we are aware of currently, but we haven't rolled it out to cloud yet. That's going to be coming. But I think the thing that's to be aware of, I think in the update notes are that there is a migration that runs on your existing submissions to prepare them to be mapped. So you should just budget for time to make sure that that migration can run. So it won't be as instant of an update. It'll just take time for the migration to happen. So that's that question. Do we have a timeline for entities from repeats? Daniel, you know we cannot answer those kinds of questions. Those are impossible questions to answer.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Like, the
and
new
you
release
remember,
of Central.
Kathleen, whatever you say, you're going to be held to.
No, but now I'm just gonna say things that are already out there. So like the new version of Central has the foundation of entities from repeats in it. And I think with the Collect beta that came out yesterday, I'm pretty sure that supports the entities from repeats form. So it should be possible to test out entities from repeats now, and we need to put some more examples and like guidance around that, but like there's like a foundation for that out there now, and we'd love to get feedback and see how that works with people's use cases. It's only supporting like a single data set, a single entity list, and collecting multiple entities for that one data set, but we're going to be adding and improving and growing things in the future as well. So that's kind of what the timeline looks like. It'll be officially released once Collect fully supports it. And also like it's web forms is building towards being able to support entities and entities from repeats. And as of like yesterday, I saw things in Slack that like it's looking good, which is great news because we were having problems with entities from repeats in Enketo and things not getting like filled in quite the right way. So that's the information I have. Lots of progress, but we'd love your input as well.
Yeah, so thank you, Kathleen. I would not, Daniel, I would not invest time into developing workarounds. This is what I'm saying. I definitely saw a video from Ellen yesterday where she was doing entities from repeats in web form. So that is, I think it's like very promising that it'll be coming out soon. And for those who are not looking at the chat, Mathieu did a upgrade this morning. Everything went smoothly. Seems like there's some minor issues that we need to update in the docs, so we'll do that. So yeah, awesome. Any other questions?
No questions. This is unheard of.
We've shocked them. Well, I suppose if they're news for web forms.
Oh no. We just went, so I can actually reshare my screen here. So that was what Jennifer shared earlier. Here, let me just go back in the deck and reshare this. I'll just quickly skip through it. There we go, you should see it. So Markdown, select one from map was just released. And now we're working, this is actually what Yao was just referring to, that demo that we are trying out just yesterday with entities in web forms with Kathleen was just sharing. So this is quite exciting. This is what we're working on right now as we speak. And then maps and maps placement. So finishing up those remaining geo question types, and then geo shape and trace. So those are the big pieces that we're working on right now for web forms. Hopefully that answers your question there.
And then I think also at a high level, we really, I think web forms right now is sort of opt-in, and we're really pushing to get it to a stage where you can call it a 1.0 or production ready, or that it has most of the features that most people would expect in a web form stack. So that's what we're really pushing towards, and it feels close. So yeah, we're making great progress on that front.
Well, we can move on to the next steps. This brings us to the end of our call. We would love to talk to folks who are self-hosting. We want to know what's working well, what's not working well, and how we can improve your ODK experience. So please, if you are self-hosting, let us know in the comments or reach out to myself and Ali. I am Nicole. I don't know why my name says ODK, but please do that. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll be reconvening in the new year. That's all for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming to the last call of the year. Langen, thank you a lot for your presentation. It's good to reconnect after 10 plus years of
Yes.
so that's been fantastic. And yeah, thanks to you all for your feedback. As you can see, we really do take the feedback to heart, and we're working really hard to build the stuff that you ask us to build. I think the team is really executing well. So if we can we give a big round of applause to, not to me, I don't care, but to the central team, the web forms team, the design team, and the collect team for all their great work. So we're going to take a long needed break and try to rest up so we can hit the ground running in 2026. So yeah, great to see you all, and thank you. We'll stick around for a few minutes, or as long as we can for the after hours. So stick around for that.